Michelle, welcome. I was just talking about how purging out our homes and doing a gentle body detox and all of these pieces really start to open up space for more of what we do want. And also, it allows us to hear our intuition that much more clearly. So I thought it was important because I always notice as soon as I start to clear out the old, good morning, I start hearing more. You can start to hear more of like what your body wants, what your essence is really wanting, what it's craving. We clear out a lot of the distraction. When we were, especially before this program, a lot of you might have found yourself moving through your life at a very, a high speed kind of unconscious level, so to speak. And so as we start to clear out a lot of that, we can start to hear more of what does serve us. And our intuition is such a beautiful, powerful aspect of what can really guide us into our own sense of nourishment. And so one piece that I wanted to touch on is using our intuition to start to build in nourishment, right? So we're starting to clear and detox and getting rid of some of the buildup and some of the distraction and some of the gunk at all these different levels. And now we want to start to build in the nourishment. And so I'm going to break down two energetic states for you to start paying attention to. And this is something that I am constantly working on mastering at every different level. And so basically, you want to start looking at ways of being, even like food choices that build your energy. So we're building our energy. So there's two different energetic states. And one is, that we're feeling nourished, we're feeling expanded, and we're starting to feel abundant in our energy. Okay, that's really important because that actual energetic state that I just described is the vibration of abundance. It's where we're starting to really hold a vibration of abundance. We're starting to feel nourished, expanded, full, and we're starting to feel a natural sense of energy. That's the vibration of abundance. That's one energetic state. The other energetic state is where we feel depleted and contracted, and where we might feel it's depleted, contracted, or maybe even on the edge of burnout. So that's the vibration of lack. That's like we don't have enough energy. We barely have enough energy. We don't feel like we have enough or that we're enough, and our energy feels almost collapsed or contracted. And that's the extreme example. So just to give you two energetic states, again, it's really important as we learn to hold a new vibration of abundance. And then the question becomes like, how full can you allow your vibration to get? How much of the good stuff can you start to let in? How many ways of being that honor your own nourishment and your sense of expanded radiance, how much of that can you let in? And when I say expanded radiance, that does not mean that you're going to be happy all the time. It doesn't mean that you might not have a bad day. It's an energy of like well-being that we're cultivating, and we're learning to hold it. And so as you move up through the 3 months, it becomes a practice, and it's something that we learn to master. Pay attention to your energetic state. Does it feel contracted? Does it feel disconnected? Does it feel depleted? Right? Or does it feel expanded and full and nourished? And as you start to build in ways of being, through, food, it can be acts of self-care, it can be ways of speaking to yourself, it can be carving out space for you just to listen. That actually, because we're directing the flow inward, can be a very nourishing act in and of itself. So we're paying attention, we're listening. And then as you start to get a sense of a fullness that starts to build, throughout the 3 months, just pay attention to what takes you out of it. Because I know for myself, when I really start to build in the energy of radiance and I'm really feeling really juicy in my energy, and that's the thing, we want to start to build our energy where we feel juicy and in our radiance as women. And we want to see how long we can hold it for. And you want to notice what takes you out of it? If it takes you out of it, which probably it will at some point. What takes you out of it? Because when you start to pay attention to what is taking you out of your juicy, radiant, expanded, nourished state, you're starting to look at what your patterns are and what the triggers might be. So one by one, we can start to identify what might be unraveling that energetic, nourished, abundant, energetic state. So I've given you those two energetic states, and then the game, so to speak, is going to be watching how long you can hold it for, how much you can allow in as you start to build in all of this nourishment, and what takes you out of it as you move forward. Okay. So why don't we, if you're on the live call, hey Petra, hey Melissa, welcome. So why don't we just take a moment, and I just want to say too, this is where we start to use the Radiant Morning Power Hour. We really have to start to carve out space in our lives as sacred women to hear, to listen deeply. Because without having that space to listen, we can't even, and listen on a regular basis, we can't even identify what actually truly serves us. We're so busy operating in the day-to-day to do mode without carving that deep space to listen. We don't have the sense of clarity where we can sink a little bit under the surface of life and hear what actually really honors us and what actually serves us. So the Radiant Morning Power Hour, especially now we've cleared out a lot of this gunk with all the detox and the purging, now we want to start to claim space to go in a little bit deeper, to start listening. And this really starts to build your intuitive channel, your goddess channel. This claiming of the space to sit down and really listen. And listening really is the key. And so if you haven't done the Radiant Morning Power Hour yet, the invitation is to, in the next week, before next week's module, to carve out 30 minutes or an hour and sit down and go through the pieces of the Radiant Morning Power Hour. It's essential. It's a practice that every woman that I've worked with who implements it regularly, it's life-changing. Life-changing. And I've had so many people, I almost wish I would take all of those testimonials because there's been a lot. So why don't we, in this space, since we're all here today, just take a moment and listen. So you can go ahead, first of all, you can go ahead and close your eyes and drop your chin if you're able to. Hopefully you're not driving. And just go to your center. And then just go ahead and put your hands on your legs, even on your arms, just bringing yourself back to your body wisdom. Taking a breath in if you want to. So I'm just going to ask the simple question of, where is your body needing nourishment right now? What is she needing that would self-care or support her or nourish her? So I've just done this with you, and I already have two things. 100%. Yeah, Melissa, you know. The Radiant Morning Power Hour, I think that's what you're talking about. So as I listened, as I tuned in, I got like space to breathe. Like space to breathe, and then I got stretching. Like, and it's simple things, but if we just take the time to listen, listening is the key. It's the key. And deep listening. Becoming masterful listeners. So then we're going to take it a step deeper and we're just going to ask, what food or foods would really nourish my body right now? Our body is so, so wise. So this is one aspect of intuitive eating. So whatever food you got, you can write that down. So we're going to start to build in nourishment. And simple steps, week by week, all the way through. We're building our energy. Building ourselves into the vibration of abundance. Becoming a match for the vibration of abundance. So the food that came through for me was pomegranate. So I'm going to trust that and go grab some pomegranates later today. But I'm going to keep listening. And you know those foods that nourish you? Like I bet I'm going to eat a pomegranate and my body will it'll have that sense of well-being. And it's the same when I eat an avocado, I have that like real sense of like, oh, I feel so nourished. I like dark cherries. My body loves dark cherries. Spinach, my body loves spinach. Okay, we're gonna go one step deeper. So you can go ahead and take a listen. This time we're gonna ask your essence self. So you can go ahead, our essence self, you can connect with her through your heart, through your womb. So you can just take a moment and you place your hand over your heart and one over your womb, and we're just gonna listen again, and we're gonna ask our essence. What does she need to feel nourished right now? Okay. So the piece that came through for me, and our essence is really nourished by sensuality, by having very sensual experiences. And by sensuality, I mean scents that are beautiful, a room that is beautiful with maybe candles and crystals and flowers and scents that speak to our essence. It could be, being even in nature can be a very sensual, sensory experience, but being in our sensual nature as women it's very grounding as well. It nourishes and it feeds our essence. So for me, when I was listening to what my essence needs, I got like being in my sensuality with like water and like a beautiful bath and flowers and candlelight. And so then I started to see how and I like to create like ritual a lot. And so when I looked at all of my pieces, what I saw is how instead of making a big to-do list, I could over the weekend create some type of a ritual that actually includes like a bit of breath work and stretching or dance. Maybe that would be kind of how I would weave it together. I'd create a really sensual kind of environment, maybe have pomegranate on hand, and I'd go have a beautiful bubble bath. So even just saying that, you can see how that starts to really nourish us on all these different levels. So I just wanted to kind of bring us into this container and into this moment and just talk about that aspect of deep listening and nourishment. And this is a practice that you can continue to do as we move through the program. And the invitation is how full, how abundant, how rich, how juicy can you let your feminine energy be? How long can you hold it for? So bit by bit in your power hour, or wherever you have a moment, you can stop and slow down, put your hands on your body, hands over your heart, and just start listening to what you need. The other piece that I wanted to touch on is seeing how long you can hold it, yes, because we want to become masters of being able to build our energy, being able to hold our energy. The longer we can hold it, the more masterful we're getting. And then watching for what takes us out of that nourished, expanded, juicy, abundant, energetic state. It's really important because in our society, we're often governed by hyper masculine to do. So this is an important piece to start to balance that out. But also an important piece is learning how to hold it and then watching for what takes us out of it. So I'm going to move into that and I'll touch base on this briefly as well. So what depletes, what drains or contracts your energy, just pattern by pattern. Keep in mind, you might spend the weekend nourishing yourself and by Tuesday you might hit a pattern. That's okay. Just acknowledge what the pattern is and look at where you can start to build your energy back in again. Let's see. Just want to make sure I got everything. Okay. So we want to, when you're holding your energetic state, look what took you out of it. What was the trigger? So what was the trigger? And what was the underlying need or deficit? So this is an interesting one because ways of being that actually nourish us, they're very honoring. They're very honoring of self because we've taken the time to listen and we've carved out the space to honor it. We, over time, will cultivate boundaries to hold more of our energetic state. When something triggers us or it starts to unravel that state, we often yet don't have a boundary around holding our energetic state. So something is unraveling us, and oftentimes the trigger that's unraveling us and moving us back into a depletion pattern or a depletion pattern or a drain pattern is rooted in a deficit of some sort or a need of some sort not being met. So the way to identify a pattern, let me just break this down. What do you need to do to bring your energy back? Yeah, see, okay, so here it is. I'm just trying to read my chicken scratch. I jotted down some notes here. Okay, so usually when we don't have a boundary in place, we are searching for something outside of ourselves because at the very, very root, we don't feel enough somehow. And this again, and we're going to keep breaking this down as we move through the pathway. We don't feel enough somehow at a deeper level. And so we're actually searching for something outside of ourselves, which is usually where we give ourselves away in some type of a pattern that actually starts to unravel us. So the secret is, so when you hit a pattern or a trigger and you're like, dang, I was like holding this really juicy state and feeling really good and totally in my abundance. And now I've like so contracted and depleted, like what did I do and how did I end up here and what is this pattern? You want to look at what the pattern was and what underneath all of it, where were you operating from not feeling enough and what need were you searching for outside of yourself? It could have been like a need for approval. It could have been a need for validation. It could have been you were looking to feel loved by someone. So you did something that really didn't serve you and it totally unraveled your energy. So those are like really common, common patterns that take us outside of our juicy, abundant, radiant state. And one of the keys to really building that juicy, abundant, radiant state is actually it's our more than enough state. It's our more than, we have more than enough energy. We have more than enough radiance. We are feeling at our core, we're starting to feel more than enough. It's a very self-loving state, a state that we've taken steps to build in acts that really that honor a very self-loving way of being. So when we start to notice patterns that take us outside of ourselves, 99% of the time, it's rooted in not feeling enough somewhere, or searching for love outside of ourselves, or approval somewhere, or where we're trying to meet the expectations of someone. So it's just pattern by pattern. And when you notice the pattern, look at, what was I needing? Why did I totally give myself away? And why am I back in this contracted energetic state again? And the answer is generally at what you were needing, that you were searching for outside yourself. Then you can come back home to yourself and look at, what was I needing? Maybe it was love. Maybe you're needing love, or maybe you're needing acceptance. And then you can come back into your power hour, or back into, a little bit of a quiet space where you're coming back to listen, and listen to what you need to give yourself instead. So maybe it is just a little bit of love, or maybe it's just spending some time loving and accepting yourself and giving yourself a pat on the back. Maybe it's just that you need to forgive yourself for where you didn't feel like you were enough. And then moving forward, you want to build your energy back in. And chances are, once you've identified a pattern or a trigger that takes you outside of this juicy energy that you're building, you will not do it again. You'll be like, no, I don't need to operate out of that pattern anymore. And it actually starts to feel much better to honor yourself and hold your own energy and create the boundaries that honor that. It starts to feel much better. And you start to, there's a desire to want to build your energy in and continue to build your energy in. So we're going to dive into this next week, we're going to talk more about this more than enough energetic state. And it really is the key. It's really landing in this place of, without anyone else telling us, we're coming into the sense of knowing that we're more than enough. We know we're more than enough. It's a very deep, loving, sacred relationship that we come into, and one where it feels safe in a very self-supporting way to continue to honor what we need and the way we want to show up, and in ways that really support our energy and our abundance. Because the truth really is, the truth is that your presence, just you being born, just you as a sacred woman, is more than enough without having anywhere to be and anything to do. You are more than enough right here, right now. So it becomes more about honoring yourself, saying yes to who you are, what you need to feel really nourished, who you feel called to be, and then no to the things that take you outside of that with really gentle, loving boundaries, and no to obligations that don't really serve you and the way you want to show up in the world. And so we start to, in a very deliberate but very gentle way, step by step, examine what it is that we're no longer willing to tolerate, or what doesn't serve us. And then we're coming back home to our own nourishment, to our own sense of knowing that we're more than enough. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. And if you have any comments after you've let all of this sink in, post below. But otherwise, and you know what, I'd love to hear, what was your essence needing? What was your essence needing? What was your body needing? Were you able to kind of piece that together in some sort of a really juicy, nourishing ritual for the weekend? And I'm sending you all so much love. I shall talk to you soon. Bye-bye.